Anne Moody in the Civil Rights Movement, A Mutual Impact. Introduction. The Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s was a watershed moment in American history when the battle for racial equality became a national debate. Anne Moody, a civil rights activist and writer who died in 1976, was a key figure in creating this movement. Coming of Age in Mississippi is a first-hand account of her experiences as an African-American woman growing up in the Jim Crow South. Moody's actions and writing attacked the repressive structures of racism and segregation, paving the way for a fairer and more reasonable society. Anne Moody's influence on the Civil Rights Movement. Leader of the Civil Rights Movement, Anne Moody spoke out against the injustices experienced by African people in the Jim Crow South using her voice and personal experiences. Her book, Coming of Age in Mississippi, is a unique recollection of her development from a young child to an adult activist fighting for justice and equality. Moody's upbringing in the South, where she faced prejudice and segregation, gave her a unique viewpoint on the Civil Rights Movement. She was able to offer viewpoints and criticisms that were occasionally missing from the greater movement. For example, Moody criticized the movement's leadership, claiming it was frequently dominated by males who were more concerned with their power and position than with effecting actual change. She also criticized the emphasis on nonviolence, saying it did not address the institutional violence that African people in the South were subjected to. The Civil Rights Movement was the target of Moody's comments, intended to improve rather than hurt it. She significantly and often contributed to the movement. By joining the NAACP and participating in sit-ins and other protests, Moody started her activism. In Mississippi, where voter suppression was rampant, she organized voter registration operations. Later in her career, Moody continued to fight for justice and equality via her writing and advocacy work. She was a prominent opponent of the Vietnam War and its impact on Black Americans, and she campaigned to solve poverty and housing discrimination, which disproportionately impacted African American neighborhoods. Moody's involvement influenced the Civil Rights Movement's trajectory, as she called for more radical tactics and a stronger emphasis on economic and social justice. Her experiences as an African American woman growing up in the Jim Crow South gave her a unique perspective on the movement, and her critiques aided in pushing it in new and more radical directions. It is impossible to overstate Moody's contribution to the Civil Rights Movement, and her legacy continues to motivate activists and scholars to this day. The Civil Rights Movement's influence on Anne Moody. Although Anne Moody played a crucial role in the Civil Rights Movement, her life and career were also impacted by it. For one thing, the movement gave Moody a platform to express her worries and share her experiences with a larger audience. She was asked to speak at national conferences and events, and her activism and writing regularly appeared in national periodicals. Furthermore, the Civil Rights Movement gave Moody a feeling of purpose and belonging. She frequently felt alone in her struggle against racism and segregation as a young lady growing up in the South. She interacted with other activists and like-minded individuals through the movement, building a community of support that helped her get through the difficult times. Most importantly, Moody was motivated by the Civil Rights Movement to continue fighting for justice and equality long after the movement had finished. Her activism and writing lasted far into the 1970s and beyond, as she campaigned to address poverty, housing discrimination, and other social justice concerns. The influence of the Civil Rights Movement on Moody's life and profession may be seen in her work in the years that followed. Through her attempts to foster understanding across the Civil Rights Movement's numerous groups, Moody significantly impacted the movement. While Moody was a staunch supporter of radical change, she acknowledged the significance of collaborating with more moderate voices to accomplish meaningful results for Black Americans. She remembers working alongside civil rights leaders such as Medgar Evers and Martin Luther King Jr. in her memoir, even as she advocated for more radical tactics and a stronger emphasis on economic and social justice. Moody's ability to collaborate with various activists and her devotion to finding common ground aided in forming a more coherent and effective movement capable of effecting genuine change in the face of entrenched prejudice and discrimination. Moody's activism was not limited to the Civil Rights Movement. She fought for social justice. After migrating to New York City in the late 1960s, Moody became active in the Black Power movement, working to solve issues like police brutality and housing discrimination. In her article, The Murder of Malcolm X, Moody recalls her participation in the protests that followed Malcolm X's death and her efforts to link the civil rights battle with the larger campaign against racism and injustice. She says, "We must recognize that the fight for civil rights is a subset of the greater fight for human rights. We are fighting for everyone who has ever been oppressed or discriminated against, not just ourselves." Moody's work in the years following the civil rights movement directly resulted from its effect on her life and career as she continued to fight for justice and equality in all of its manifestations. Conclusion. The effect of Anne Moody on the civil rights movement and the movement's influence on her life and work were inextricably linked and mutually reinforcing. Moody's experiences with racism and segregation in the Jim Crow South provided her with a unique perspective on the movement, which she utilized to advocate for more radical methods and a stronger focus on economic and social justice. Simultaneously, the movement gave Moody a forum to express her concerns and interact with other activists, encouraging her to work for justice and equality long after the campaign had finished. Now, Moody's legacy serves as a reminder of the importance and power of individual action in standing up for what is right. Her memoir Coming of Age in Mississippi is a strong and profound book providing a personal account of one woman's journey during a turbulent period in American history. As people around the world battle for racial justice and equality in the 21st century, they may look at Moody's example as a reminder of the importance of standing up for what is right in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges.